Welcome to the Sound Relief Podcast. I'm Dr. Julie Prutsman, audiologist and founder of Sound Relief, Tinnitus, and Hearing Centers. With over 20 years of experience, I've helped thousands find relief from tinnitus and hearing challenges. On this podcast, I'll break down the latest research, share expert insights, and offer real solutions to help you take control of your hearing health. If you're looking for answers, hope, and a path to relief, you're in the right place. Let's get started. With us today is Dr. Madison Brown, our audiologist in Scottsdale, Arizona. We're so glad to have her on the podcast today. The topic of this conversation will be about some commonly asked questions on our YouTube channel videos. Make sure to go to the YouTube channel to check those out. We're going to speak specifically about some of the tinnitus sounds that we have on the YouTube channel. They're also on our website, soundrelief.com. When patients are trying to explain to a loved one or a friend about the sound that they hear as they're ringing or buzzing or hissing in their ears or head, we refer them to these videos to say, hey, look what I hear 24/7, just to better explain their experience and what's going on. So one of the most common questions we get with the 4,000 hertz tone and the 7,500 hertz tone that's presented on those videos is, why do they, in some cases, cause total relief for the individual listening to it from their tinnitus? So, for example, I have one comment here from a viewer of the video that said, "Thank you so much. I have had tinnitus since I was 9 years old. Now I am 25, and for the first time since then, I've been able to enjoy a few seconds without tinnitus." So, Dr. Brown, could you just jump right on here and kind of give us an idea of why someone might experience some temporary relief from hearing a 4,000 hertz or a 7,500 hertz tone as we have presented in these videos?
Yeah, I want to jump in first by saying this is such a good thing. And it goes back to the name of this company, which is Sound Relief, telling us that sound can be therapeutic. So residual inhibition is what we call this phenomenon. And it's just an explanation of how when people hear a certain sound, it has a calming effect on them and they experience relief from their tinnitus. And that sound can be played for 30 seconds up to their full day, and it can have a therapeutic effect on them.
Right. So I think, that term residual inhibition is very scientific, clearly, and it can confuse people at times of exactly what is that meaning. So like you said, it can create suppression of the tinnitus for a period of time. For a lot of people, that might be less than a minute. It might be a few seconds. Some people, it could be a few hours or even a day. So you just never know exactly who would benefit from something like this, who would experience residual inhibition, who wouldn't. So if we think about tinnitus as hyperactivity in the brain, what do we think the sound is doing in the brain when they listen to something that is similar in pitch to their tinnitus? Any ideas there on what we think might be happening in the brain?
What I'm thinking is this goes back to the root cause of tinnitus, which is actually the brain missing some input, missing some auditory input, or missing some sound. And so when we give a sound back, specifically in a region where it's been missing, I would say that's why they're experiencing relief. Because I use this example with my patients and it's kind of funny, but I think of the brain like a hungry baby, and what it's hungry for is that missing noise. And so when we can give that sound back to the brain, it has a calming effect on it.
Absolutely. I think our brain is always trying to replace missing input, right? Whether it's visual or auditory or
somatic.
All the different senses. But then also, I think if you think about it for patients with normal hearing, say they don't
Mm.
have any missing input because their hearing is still normal, I think in those instances, and again, these are all theories, right? Like there's so
Yeah.
much about the brain we don't fully understand, but it's nice to think through these theories and see how they can logically make sense. But with someone with normal hearing, I think the tinnitus, so say my tinnitus is very high pitch as well. So my
Mhm.
tinnitus in my left ear is 7,200 hertz when I pitch match it in the sound booth. And so that's close enough to the 7,500 hertz tone that we're presenting in our sound example on the website and on YouTube, that when my tinnitus peaks and I turn on this sound, I do get some temporary relief while I'm listening to it. And there's again two more theories here because I do have essentially normal hearing in the left ear, that the tone at 7,500 hertz is interrupting my tinnitus signal at
Yeah.
7,200 hertz. And so the two are kind of canceling each other out so
Mhm.
that I don't perceive the sound in my head, even though it is being
Yeah.
externally produced from the video. So something there is interrupting the abnormal firing of my auditory nerve, auditory
Right.
cortex in the brain, somewhere along that pathway, causing the perception of no tinnitus in my head. So there's that theory that I think makes sense, especially for people out there who have essentially normal hearing and tinnitus, and this works for them.
I would like to
Um,
add on to that if you're okay
yeah.
with it.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
I
Yeah.
We both have tinnitus worse in our left ear, which I find very interesting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think there's something very calming about having it be an external sound. Like having something
Yes.
in your environment, and when you hear it, you go, ah, that is a sound that I'm hearing. And I know it's coming outside of my head. And for
Mm-hmm.
example, I've noticed that when I'm golfing, I can hear this little noise in the golf cart, and it almost exactly matches my tinnitus. And it's very soothing to
Interesting.
me. It's like it's interrupting what I'm already hearing in my head, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
validating me. Yes, I'm hearing this from an external source. I think that like has a psychological calming effect on me.
Yeah. And I don't think you're alone in that. I think a lot of people realize that when they can identify a pitch that's similar, but that's definitely coming from the outside world rather than internally from their brain, that they say, oh, okay, well, you know, some other things in this world make a very similar sound. So
And that
it's,
sound's not
yeah,
hurting me, right? Like this
right.
noise
Yeah.
in my case, the golf cart sound is actually very soothing because I love being in that
Yeah.
environment. Um,
Right. Positive associations, right?
yeah.
We always say we want to not attach a negative label, which is so hard because our subconscious nervous system is what's doing the labeling as
Mhm.
this is a threat, this is annoying, this is disturbing. So it's not like we can always consciously control that. But
Yeah.
like you said, if you find a sound similar, but that has a more calming context, you want to think about that and say, how do we help reclassify my tinnitus as a similar type of sound
Mhm.
that's not threatening, right, and not something that can harm me, so to speak. Easier said than done, right?
It is,
We
and I
know
guess that's the
easier
whole
said than
goal
done.
of tinnitus retraining therapy, right?
Yeah. Yes. Help get the brain reclassify this sound. And the other one other theory that I think is important to kind of point out is sometimes all you need to do is introduce a new novel sound, something
Mhm.
interesting and soothing to distract the brain away from the tinnitus. And in some of those cases, you'll also see kind of a cancellation effect because now the brain, it's kind of like, again, if you want to use maybe like a toddler analogy, it's the
Mhm.
shiny new penny. So, or the shiny new toy, probably better for a toddler. I got to go look at this shiny new object instead of being fixated on the one thing in this instance being the tinnitus, right? So I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of possibilities here as to why residual inhibition happens and what's going on in the brain. But we know it's a real phenomenon
Yeah.
that not everyone experiences though with tinnitus, which is another interesting um, thought. But that's probably because no two brains are the same, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure you hear it every day how people react and respond differently to tinnitus in all different types of sounds of tinnitus, right?
Absolutely. And that's why we will counsel people that while it's important to have prescriptive sound therapy and have it fit appropriately with your audiologist, if the sound is calming and soothing, we're accomplishing something, because
Mhm.
our whole goal is to create this new categorization of our tinnitus, whether that's neutral or positive, as long as we're reorganizing the way our brain is classifying the tinnitus. And I think we underestimate how important it is to have a therapeutic environment or have therapeutic sounds in our environment.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's so key because we know when it's quiet, the tinnitus is going to be loudest, right? So when we think, oh, I just want to be in a quiet room and enjoy some peace, if you have constant tinnitus, that's not what we're going to recommend you do, at least for a while until we can really break some of those connections between the nervous system and the tinnitus, right? So yeah, we need to find therapeutic sounds that can help
Mm-hmm.
either distract the brain, calm the brain, both, whatever we can do to decrease some of this hyperactivity that we know is going on in a brain when tinnitus is present, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I like that point. It needs to be therapeutic for sure. Um, the next question we often get, if you can touch on this for us, Dr. Brown, is why is it that if I am using either a sound rich environment or prescriptive sound therapy, ear level devices all day, and then I take them off and go to bed, that all of a sudden my tinnitus sounds louder than ever and I feel like I'm not progressing or getting any better? Why do we think that happens?
We feel like it's a setback, right? Like, oh, I've been
Right.
doing so good all day. And I first want to point out, I think it's a really positive thing. It means that you have found some level of relief with your tinnitus. You know it's possible. And once you know it's possible, you can move beyond that. But that happens just because you have had relief. The contrast between relief and constant annoying tinnitus can be a pretty stark change. So when we take off that relieving sound, we move into a quieter space, it becomes very obvious. It's the only sound that's present, potentially, the only sound that you're hearing. And if your brain is classifying that noise as something that's harmful to you, it's going to grab your attention. I think of this analogy where you have like a black dot on a paper and you're looking at this big white sheet of paper, but all you're focusing on is that black dot there. And so if something is going to stand out like that, then you're going to notice it more.
Yeah, absolutely. The loudness, our perception of loudness
Mm,
is 100% dependent on the contrast to the background, right? So
yeah.
a lot of people will even realize this of, hey, I hear fine one-on-one and quiet, but when you put me in background noise, I can't pick out your voice. The contrast of your voice is no longer there. And so you're just fading into the background and I have no idea what you're
Mm,
saying to me. So it happens with hearing, it happens with tinnitus, it happens even with vision, right? So
yeah.
oftentimes we use the candle analogy to describe this relief contrast effect of, if you have a candle in a bright room, you don't really notice the candle. It's not that interesting because all the lights are on, but you
Everything else
turn
is
off the
right.
lights, right? Exactly. Then what happens? We focus on the candle and go, wow, that's bright.
Mm,
So the same thing applies with tinnitus, right? And that's why we're always encouraging our patients with tinnitus to, you know, especially if tinnitus is distressful to someone, is distressing them. We always encourage them, right, to be in a sound rich environment and
yeah.
be aware of this contrast effect. So if you are wearing prescriptive sound therapy and you're taking them off to go to bed, have another sound in your room before removing your sound therapy. So your brain can just shift gears to that other sound, whether it's a floor fan, a ceiling fan, an air humidifier, a
Function.
sound generator, something, right?
Mm.
What do you think patients tend to gravitate towards if we're encouraging them to be in a sound rich environment if they're not wearing prescriptive sound therapy or ear level devices? What do you think have you been hearing is the most
Yeah.
common?
I hear TV all the time. It's always
Yeah.
TV, and I think something that is therapeutic about TV is that it grabs your attention. there's
Mhm.
words, there's a storyline, you know, it's something that has more change in inflection. And so TV is something that I hear quite a bit. And
Mhm. Mhm.
I think that's fine. I mean, having some sort of noise is going to be better than nothing. It's just when we're
Sure.
trying to go to sleep and we're trying to calm the nervous system down, that could be a bit disruptive. But you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, TV is common. I think two of the biggest mistakes though with TV, right, are you don't plan for the fluctuations
Yeah.
between the program and the commercials, and then the
Oh, yeah.
commercials come on blasting you, and then it'll wake you up. So I don't like TV for sleeping because of the contrast between commercials and programs. And the light. We know the light
Mhm.
emulating from the TV is stimulating you even with your eyes closed, so that's not great for deep sleep. But you're right, you gotta start somewhere. The cardinal rule, though, is definitely do not set your TV to turn off after an hour of
Yeah.
watching it, because then you're going back to silence when the TV turns off, and that's more likely to cause you to wanna wake up again, and then you're starting that whole cycle over. So yeah, you're right, a lot of people do use TV. I know I do. It's one of those things, I get home, I turn on the TV, I need background noise.
Mhm.
But for sleeping, we'd always prefer, right, for patients to use nature sounds. I still listen to the rain app every night because it's a free one, that I like the sound of the rain to sleep to at night. A low level for sure. The lower, the better, because low levels are more soothing and calming.
Yeah.
Um, what do you use? Are you using a sound generator at night still,
Yeah,
Dr.
I
Brown?
have an air purifier. And in fact, last night I woke up at like 3 o'clock and I go, oh my goodness, we didn't even turn that on last night. And I heard my tinnitus and I was like, huh, cool. Let me go back to sleep. And I did.
No problem.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. For some
it
people,
is
yeah,
so
that's
cool.
funny. That
It
happened
is
to me
really
too
cool to
last night.
witness like how you can go, but y'all, I do this for a living. I had it
Yeah.
in my head that I was going to cure myself, you know, in a few weeks. But I had to have that sound on for good 18 months consistently.
Oh yeah.
Be
Oh yeah.
patient with the process. We're working with the brain. We're rewiring
Yeah.
your brain. You got to
Right.
give
It
yourself
takes
time.
time.
And
It does take time.
I think those calming noises are so important too because our whole goal is to take our nervous system from a state of arousal and bring us to that state of like rest and digest. Let our parasympathetic
Hmm.
nervous system come into the light, and we need that in order to sleep. We need those stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol to lower so we can have restful sleep. And I think
Yeah.
those nature-based sounds or something more consistent is going to play a bigger role in that or have a more significant impact.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Anything that you can't track the cycle of. If I listen
Mhm.
to some of the apps that are just on a loop and you could tell when they stop and start, I'll wake up every time it stops, even though it's going to start right back up within like seconds. But
Yeah.
our brains are wired to recognize patterns, right?
Mhm.
So the better apps don't have a loop, and they don't have that pattern that you can memorize and then be disrupted by the pattern. So it's fascinating to me too, because I still use a sound generator at night. I've been using a sound generator, gosh, probably for over a decade, I think. Probably, I mean, if I'm thinking back, yeah,
Mhm.
well over a decade. And now, so my tinnitus, I'm not hearing my tinnitus right now. I'm definitely someone, and we'll get to this, who can say I experience long lasting tinnitus remission. Only a few times a year does my tinnitus spike back up. But
You
regardless,
don't
I
hear it otherwise?
still, no, I don't hear it right now at all.
Okay.
But probably because in our office we have a good enough HVAC system that there's enough background hum
Yeah.
that's enough of a relief contrast to my tinnitus, because now my tinnitus is at such a low level that just the HVAC going on in this office is enough to completely suppress any tinnitus. But if I go in the soundproof booth, I could still find it. I'm like, there it is. But it's way back here and it's turned way down. It was, way loud and way in front of my face.
Mhm.
Yeah, probably 8 years ago now. Hard to keep track of time. It keeps flying by. But yes, the brain for me even when my tinnitus isn't bothering me, if I'm having a hard time falling asleep and I forgot to turn on my Rain app, I'll look at my phone and go, oh, no wonder I'm having a hard time falling asleep, because now I have created a pattern in my brain that says rain sound means sleep. So if I hear the rain, it like shuts my brain down so that I can, stop processing my day and thinking about what I have to do tomorrow and, all these things on my checklist. But I've now associated over the years not only the benefits of a sound generator for reducing tinnitus perception, but it's also now affiliated in my brain, I think, in my nervous systems as a calming sign that it's time to go to sleep. And if I don't if I don't recognize that sound's there, it's almost like my body's not ready to let go of the day. So I'll probably always have to use a sound generator at night to get good sleep, whether I am experiencing loud tinnitus or not. So it's quite fascinating how
I noticed
that
that
works.
too. Like in the morning, if I'm trying to wake up, sometimes I'll go turn it off, and then I'm like, it just has this kind of dreamy effect on me, and it makes sense. They say what wires together fires together. So if you're creating this calming environment and that sound is paired with it, then it's going to like be this trigger of like, oh, it's time to go to bed.
Exactly. It's definitely done that for me. So I think, that's what we should have listeners or viewers really think about, right? What is a soothing sound that they could have in the background, playing all night while they're sleeping? I think the problem when I talk to people that say, oh, I tried that and it didn't work for me, when you probe a little bit further and ask them, okay, well, tell me what was the sound, and they'll describe it, and I'll say, okay, yeah, I could see how that might be soothing, and then what volume did you set it to? And they'll say, oh, I don't know, it was pretty loud because I was trying to cover up my tinnitus with that other sound. And I said, no, we're not trying to mask, right? We know that masking might feel good temporarily, but masking with a louder sound long term it's a band-aid. It's not helping to rewire your brain. So I know it's counterintuitive, right? We have to talk about this all the time with patients, that it might seem counterintuitive that we want you to set a signal audible but low and not totally covering up your tinnitus, because we need your brain to recognize the tinnitus is still there. We want to lower the perceived intensity of the tinnitus by having a contrasting signal we can mix with the tinnitus. But I think the common problem is people are using sound at night at too loud of a level. And then if you wake up at, say, midnight after going to sleep and you realize the sound generator now is in your room is blaringly loud, that is not going to be calming and soothing or helpful in helping you fall back asleep, right? So I think what else have you heard from patients that you were like, well, no, that's not going to work for sleeping because of some of these other impacts, or what have patients told you similar or different from what I just described?
Well, oftentimes my patients will be like thinking they're supposed to mask the tinnitus. And they'll say, this isn't drowning out my tinnitus. And it's kind of a novel concept for most of them to understand that's a good thing. If you have your tinnitus right here and you mask it, you're suppressing it, you're pushing it down. And then when you really release that, it comes right back up. So yeah, I love this idea of having them blend together. I think the volume is more important than we actually realize. Like we were talking about earlier, it's TV often that people will say they fall asleep to, or some of my patients will fall asleep with audiobooks, like AirPods in their ears with audiobooks, and they really like it because it just takes their mind off of the tinnitus entirely. But is that a Band-Aid, or is that helping you have long-term relief? Sometimes in the beginning, I think it can be helpful because you are in a state of like, I really need to sleep. I really need this relief from my tinnitus. But if we want to have that long lasting impact, we have to shift gears a little bit. And
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. I think, with like the Calm app and some of these other apps where they'll kind of read you a story in a very soothing voice. I'm thinking of some of
mhm.
them, and some of them, the ones I like are like a very deep baritone voice at a lower volume level. And it's like music to my ears. It just puts me right to sleep. But you're right. You have to find something that is soothing and calming and that might look different over time
Yeah,
based on, what's working for you at any given time. And then eventually you fall onto something like
yeah.
your humidifier, my rain app of just what can I use that's low level. So like when I set my rain app, I'm just setting it to where I have to pay attention to hear it. Um, and sometimes that because I'm charging my phone, I've got my Bluetooth off airplane mode. I'm charging my phone, and it's on my nightstand. And oftentimes, my husband sleeping next to me won't even be able to hear it, because it's
Mhm.
not very loud. Some nights he'll say, "Can you turn that up a little bit?" Because even though he doesn't have tinnitus, it helps him sleep better
That's
too.
good.
So sometimes I'll turn it up like one notch above where I'm just starting to hear it. And then some nights, if I wake up in the middle of the night, if I've turned it up for him, I might realize it and then turn it back down because
Yeah.
lower levels are more soothing. And I think that's where people really kind of miss the mark when we're talking about using sound, soothing sound at night to help with sleeping. It needs to be soothing. It can't be loud, masking, obnoxious. It's just I guess I've talked to some people who do use. Have you? I've talked to some people who are like, "Oh yeah, I have 3 fans in my bedroom on
Oh, yeah.
high going," and I'm going, "How do you sleep in that room with all of that noise?" But I think again, they've just gotten used to it. Have you heard similar
I
stories
definitely
from
have, and
patients?
sometimes I'm kind of in this conundrum of, like, I know this is kind of working. You've kind of plateaued, but it's kind of working. And this conundrum is like, okay, how do we back off from here? Because
Yeah.
you think of this thing as therapy, which it is, but it's too much. And
Yeah.
so that's actually kind of a challenge when I have these
Yeah.
patients who are kind of like volume junkies, you know. It's like,
Right.
how do we dial it back from here? And sometimes people
Yeah.
will have their sound therapy in their ears really loud too, and
Yeah.
I can hear it from across the table, and it's bringing them a lot
Yeah.
of relief in the beginning, but we kind of got to taper ourselves back. And
Yep.
you can do it. It doesn't have to be all at once. It can be
Right.
incremental. If you sleep with the TV on every night and it's what you've always done, maybe you start by just turning the volume down more. Or
Hmm.
maybe you start by turning the TV off, but having something with words play so you're not getting that light and you're creating a more calming atmosphere to sleep in.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot to be said about taking incremental steps and
Yeah.
sticking to them. Try it for a week. You don't know if it's going to help unless you give it a solid effort. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
volume is important.
Yeah. I agree. And it doesn't need to be all or nothing. It could be baby steps like you're saying and that actually works more effectively than all or nothing, right? But it is important to think about because I've talked to patients before where if they have to have 3 fans on them, a box fan, a
Mm.
table fan right next to them, and an air purifier, all 3 things going on at night to sleep with, do you think they can ever leave their house and travel?
Yes.
Like, how are you
What
going to
happens when you
travel
go
with
on
all of
vacay? I
that?
don't know.
I'm going, we got to help you here because this does not make sense. You're
Right.
retiring soon. You want to travel the world. You are not going to be able to put that box fan in your suitcase to go to Europe. So we got to figure out some strategies here to help you manage this more effectively. So, yeah, I think a lot of our time is spent, right, Dr. Brown, in clinic trying to help patients through how can
Mhm.
we make this easier and more manageable and see the results. We just have to have, like you said, that open mindset, willing to try different things, willing to sit down and have a conversation as to why masking gives temporary relief, but long term we need to take a different approach
Mhm.
and see how we can help them reduce the volume of some of these sounds that they might be using ineffectively long term, right? So that's where I tend to see the most success is when people are willing and able to come to the table and say, tell me what I'm doing wrong and how I could get
Mm-hmm.
better. If someone's willing to do that, I think we can help them
Absolutely.
99% of the time, right?
Well, we're kind of like fighting against this cultural narrative of quick fix medicine and how can I take this pill and fix it overnight? And it's just not how it's going to work with tinnitus. It just is not.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when you do find those people who have an open mind and they're open to the idea of putting in a little bit of work and making some changes along the way, and okay with the slow gradual change, I mean, it has significant impact. Kind of just got
Yeah.
to buckle up for the ride and, work with each other to find some solutions.
Right. And I think, we've been talking a lot about sound and sound therapy and prescriptive sound therapy as it relates to tinnitus retraining therapy, which really incorporates both the prescriptive sound therapy and educational counseling or directive counseling, it's been referred to as well. But let's talk a little bit more about that side of it because we're referring to it with implying we need to have these open conversations and these back and forth conversations about what's working, what's not working for sleep during the day, different environments. Um, what else are we doing when we talk about the directive counseling piece?
Mm.
What does that exactly mean? How do you explain the directive counseling piece of TRT to patients? What is that exactly?
I'm going to start off with a little analogy because it
Yeah.
tends to hit home for people. But if you're looking to get in better physical health or whatever it is, but you want to go to the gym to do it, you can go to the gym and set your goals and you can reach your goals. But if you have a personal trainer who is, helping you stay on track, and if you're trying to go one way, a physical or a personal trainer is going to help you stay on track to reach what those goals are. And
Yes.
I think it's very similar to what we're doing. You know,
Absolutely.
if we
Absolutely.
if we know what your goals are, and we've witnessed thousands of people attain the same goal, and for you and I, Julie, we have attained that for ourselves. It
Hmm.
We have all of these different stories and narratives that we can use to help direct, and of course, our expertise and training within the field. But it's just like somebody to help guide you through the process. And
Absolutely.
when you come upon roadblocks, when things get more challenging, you have somebody to help you shift gears and find the piece of the puzzle that may be missing, or find, something that could bring a more positive outcome to you.
Yes. Yeah. I know for a fact I would not be going to the gym 3 days a week if I didn't have someone holding me accountable and my
Accountability.
guy, yeah,
That's
John,
so
shout out to John
true.
Drury. Yeah, he's a great trainer. If I didn't have someone there that was saying, "Okay, meet me here, at this time. Here's what we're doing. Here's the plan." I wouldn't honestly stick to the plan because I would
Mm-hmm.
find an excuse or reason why I couldn't or didn't want to or I didn't feel well or I'm not in the mood or it's a Friday. I don't want to go to. Yes, I think having an accountability buddy right now, we're more
Mm-hmm.
than that. We're experts into this and we really do, though, work alongside of our patients to help them accomplish their goals. And I think part of that too entails talking about some things that people might not want to consider but need to, like lifestyle modifications and
Oh yeah.
skill building in areas that they might not have always been receptive to or open to, like progressive muscle relaxation, guided imagery, deep breathing exercises,
Mm-hmm.
some cognitive behavioral therapy concepts like challenging our thoughts and changing our attitude about our situation. But all of those types of skills and modifications are tools that we have as experts to help introduce to our patients and say, I need you to try this. Have you tried this? Can you try this for me? I know it could make a
Mm-hmm.
big impact if you would be willing to give it a try. Yoga, meditation, mindfulness. There's so many different things available to us today. And because no two people are the same, right? We have to explore the options and find, I'd say on average, what do you think? 2, 3 skills, 4 skills total out of the possibility of 20 plus skills that we know are out there that have been proven effective to help manage tinnitus. We need to help our patients find those 2 to 4 additional tools other than just prescriptive sound therapy that they can use when they have a bad day, right? Or their tinnitus is just spiking. And, that can be, disappointing and discouraging when you're, like myself, always around the holidays. The stress of the holidays will trigger my tinnitus almost every year. It's just, and maybe it's because now I just anticipate that this is going to happen, that I'm somehow manifesting this tinnitus spike to occur every holiday season.
Wires together, ties together.
Right? Stress. And and every year I'm like, I'm not going to be stressed. I'm going to plan in advance. I'm going to, shop in advance for gifts for my loved ones. But it's still for whatever reason, it usually breaks down every holiday season.
Well, you have a great opportunity there, right?
Right, exactly. And so every year I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to try something different this year. And I love yoga, so I have seen where, if I go and take especially hot yoga, I love hot yoga class, that I feel so much calmer afterward, that if my tinnitus is spiking, it definitely can have a positive impact to bring the intensity of it down. But that might not work for everyone. So what other skills, right? Yeah, everyone is unique. What other skills have you seen lately that have been helping your patients besides just the prescriptive sound therapy piece with their tinnitus?
I think it is less about the actual skill you choose and more about your willingness to try it and commit to it. I'll have people that come in and say, like, I tried breathing tonight and it did nothing. And I'm like, cool. Let's try it for another few days.
Right? Yeah, so tell me about this breathing. How are you doing it?
Let's learn a little bit more about that. I'm trying to think of some common things that people will do. Of course, using devices is always going to be kind of that passive tool that you can use all the time. I'm a big believer in presence, just like being present in your body. I can't stress enough the importance of creating a soothing environment, not just with your sound, but you could go out and go on a walk. And when you're on your walk, you can listen to the birds. You can feel the breeze on your skin. You can see all your environment around you. And that really brings you out of your head just listening to your tinnitus, and you kind of drop back into your body and focus on your other senses. And you can really do that anywhere you're at. Even when I'm in the morning, when I wake up and do some stretching, it's pretty quiet and I'll hear my tinnitus, but I have my body. I can lean down and touch my toes and I start feeling like a little stretch in my back and under my, in my hamstrings. And then I can focus my attention on that part of my body. So literally anywhere you're at, it's free to just put your attention on the other senses that you have, whether it's visual, somatic, auditory. Those things are just available to us. If you don't have anything there, you can literally breathe. And you can feel the breath going in and out of your body, and you might even be able to hear your breath. So that's something I've noticed I've been focusing on with my patients, because a lot of them are very busy and they're like, I don't know how to do yoga. I don't want to get a membership, or I don't have time to do X, Y, Z. Well, this is a really simple tool that you can use for yourself. Is just getting really present, using your senses.
Yeah.
Focusing.
Changing your focus. Absolutely. Helping people change their focus, I think, is huge, because we're so distracted today too by so many different inputs. And sometimes it's just let's put the screens down. That's not helping our stress at all. Let's put those away.
It's an immediate
like you said,
right? It's ooh, that feels really good right now.
Yeah. Might feel good right now, but then I can't go to sleep because I'm all riled up by what I was reading on social media or screens in general. So I think I do hear a lot of patients tell me that, if they can take a walk first thing in the morning to get their day started, and right, we know the benefits of exercise and getting the adrenaline flowing and some endorphins going, and just being able to, like you said, appreciate our environment, where we are, the beauty of the day, whatever it is, the blue sky, right? Yes.
Gratitude. If you can
and change our focus.
if you compare those positive emotions with whatever you're doing, it's so powerful. It's so powerful.
Yeah.
You can think of something you're grateful for. You can, at any moment, you can think of something that you're grateful for, right? And
Yeah.
just pairing your mindset, switching it up. If anything, if you do anything, just do something different. you
Yeah.
know?
Exactly.
Try something
Try
new.
something different. Yep. Just switch up your pattern, because maybe it's the pattern of how you're approaching the day that's creating a negative
Mm-hmm.
situation, a negative response for you. So, last question I have for you is something that a term I've been using a lot more lately or recently. I think I came back from the Tinnitus Research Initiative conference in Vancouver last September, was it? Last fall, and started really using this term because I heard it over and over again at the Tinnitus Research Initiative conference of long lasting tinnitus remission.
Mm.
And long lasting tinnitus remission kind of, I can't help but think of cancer remission, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because cancer and tinnitus, and diabetes for that matter, oftentimes fall into the same category of no, we don't have a cure for these things, but we still treat diabetes, we still treat cancer, and we still can treat tinnitus. And our goal is remission, right? We want our symptoms to be in remission so that we are not being negatively impacted from these symptoms on a daily basis. And so, long lasting tinnitus remission is just really our goal, what we're striving to achieve with our patients. So, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. How would you tell a patient they're going to, how do they achieve
Mm.
that goal of long lasting tinnitus remission? If you were to kind of summarize it in, a quick way, because I know
Mm-hmm.
it's complex because we're talking about the brain, but if we were to try to summarize how to achieve long lasting tinnitus remission, what do you think that would look like?
Long-lasting tinnitus remission, I would say, is your tinnitus is no longer having impact on your quality of life. It's not affecting your daily or nightly activities. It's just not this thing that's weighing you down or having any negative impact on you. It could still be there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah. If you focus on it, you go in the sound booth, it's still going to be there, like mine.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think what people don't understand or what they don't realize is how important it is, which we started this whole conversation about, is we have to calm our central nervous system down. We have to
Mm.
have zero reaction subconsciously at this lower brain level. Our nervous system cannot be reacting to the tinnitus at all. And in order to get there, we have to use things like a sound rich environment, 24/7 sound, right? And prescriptive sound therapy, especially if there's hearing loss and we're missing high frequency input to the brain. I can't stress enough
Mm.
after over 25 years now of helping people with tinnitus. If there is any underlying noise notches or noise damage or high frequency hearing loss, we have to give that input back to the brain because the brain is searching for it. And that searching is causing the hyperactivity. But we have to have zero, zero reaction to the tinnitus on the subconscious level. The nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, the limbic system, those parts of the brain have to be at zero
Mm.
before we're going to be able to block our perception at the higher brain level. And so I think, and that takes time. I wish it was an overnight quick fix. It's not. Like
Mhm.
it takes time to neutralize those reactions, that we are not even maybe connecting that it's the tinnitus causing me to be short tempered, it's the tinnitus causing me to be angry, it's the tinnitus causing me to be depressed. It's, sometimes we're not aware of all of the impact the tinnitus might be having on our nervous system. But that's why I'm sure you could share on this, Dr. Brown, why patients, when we turn on prescriptive sound therapy, in many instances, people will just go, they take a deep breath and they go, wow, that is such a relieving feeling to just get some temporary reprieve from my tinnitus. But we have to build off of that, right? That
Yeah.
it's not you experience it one day and then your tinnitus is gone the next day. That's not how this works. That's not how we get to long lasting tinnitus remission. But have you had people where you've patients where you've seen that response
Oh,
where
yes.
you can't even explain it, right? Or you can't even describe it, I should say. We can explain why it happens.
Mhm.
We can't accurately describe it, which is why at Sound Relief, we want to do a demonstration of technology on every patient with tinnitus every time to see if they will have this same response or reaction, if their nervous system will take a deep breath and go, that feels so much
Yeah.
better, right?
Even people who claim that their tinnitus isn't bothering them, if you are
Mm-hmm.
experiencing relief, what were you feeling before? The limbic
Right.
system and the nervous system had to be activated in some way, shape, or form. But that's
Mm-hmm.
like one of the
Mm-hmm.
most magical parts of the job. When they
Mm-hmm.
do get
Mm-hmm.
some opportunity for immediate relief, and
Mm-hmm.
it gives
Mm-hmm.
them a sense of hope, like, oh,
Yes.
there is hope here. And that's only the first
Yes.
step. It's the first
Yes.
step. And you just get to keep on going from there. And yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty powerful, isn't it, when you see
absolutely.
that? And, for some people, it's not instantaneous. It
Oh,
doesn't
yeah,
happen
that was me.
right away,
Like,
right?
I'm one of those.
But
Hmm.
as long as it's soothing and calming and pleasant, most people can say, well, you know what? That would be better than what I'm hearing
Mhm.
without it. So that's motivating. And we have many patients, right, where they say, you know what? I realize that this sound therapy, now that my tinnitus has like the dimmer switch has been dimmed down in intensity to a point where it's really not bothersome anymore. But I still want to wear my sound therapy every day because it's helping me stay calm. It's
Mhm.
making me not have anxiety so as much as I did without it. So what do we tell those patients that are like, I don't want to give this up?
That's a good question. I've actually been throwing this around in my own head because I put my devices on the other day and I was like, whoa, that's loud. And it didn't have a calming effect, which actually was so hopeful to me because I'm like, oh, my tinnitus has gotten lighter. And I do
Yeah.
see that with some people where they're like, this is a bit loud, but I don't actually see that very often where people want to get rid of their sound therapy.
Right.
And
No, that they're saying, I want to use it long term because it's having additional positive side effects on there. That's what I was saying, that the sound therapy can be used, that a lot of people don't want to give it up
yeah.
and use it indefinitely because it does have other benefits like calming.
What do
And
you think? Do you think there's anything wrong with that?
no, not at all. Not at all. Because as long as sound therapy is in the background and is not interfering with speech and communication, my level of sound therapy when I have to fall back on my devices, like at the holidays, and use my sound therapy more consistently during that time, it fades in and out of my attention all day. So if I am in a quiet room, I hear the sound therapy. But if I go in and I'm talking with someone or I'm, in the office and we've got noise and people talking, I won't even hear the sound therapy. So because it kind of fades in and out of our attention, it can be in the background forever and really not have any negative impact. When sound therapy is set correctly, it's something that could always be present and in my mind never really do harm or never be
Yeah.
a nuisance when it's set appropriately for the patient or for the person using it.
Well, we know the impact of stress on the body. I mean, I, I think it's the number one source of dis-ease in bodies. And so if you have something that is having a calming effect and relaxing those stress hormones, why not? And
Yeah.
it's so
Right.
easy. It's so passive. Just pop it on,
Yeah.
go about your
Yeah.
day. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's like I said, it's something that until people experience the correct type of sound therapy that has this
mm,
calming effect on their nervous system, it's really hard to describe, which is why I'm always, that's why we have so many demo devices in all of our offices, right? Because we
voila.
have different technologies for different people based on their, audiogram, their hearing history, their hearing health, based on their preferences of sound quality. There's so many things that go into auditory perception, but um, how would you, last but not least, so we talked about long lasting tinnitus remission, and that's really our ultimate goal. Our
Mhm.
goal is to be able to, at 12 to 24 months, depends, every brain's different. But so after a year, we feel like we have this new auditory pathway established, right? That's more intact and more calm and soothing. And so once we get to that point and we have no reactions to the tinnitus whatsoever, that's when we're more able to block our perception of the tinnitus and achieve that long-lasting tinnitus remission. So do you think, you not think, that's the wrong question. How would you say our protocol, I mean, we use the basics of tinnitus retraining therapy plus tenets of cognitive behavioral therapy. So, but how would you describe what we do as different than most others out there saying that they treat tinnitus?
I
How's our approach different?
I really believe that educational counseling and helping guide people through that process is everything. And the magic happens when our patients take accountability and do the things that we're talking about in our appointments or the things that they're learning about in the online learning center. Like, that's when things really happen. And I think that's different than other places in that we're not just using a hearing aid, first of all. We're not just using sound therapy. We are making you a master of your tinnitus, making you a master of this topic so that you can appropriately apply it to your own life, because we're all so complex. We all have such individualized brains and neural wiring. So I think that's very, very different from really what a lot of medical providers are doing. Like, let's find ways that you can modify your lifestyle, and it doesn't have to be drastic, but let's find ways that you can make modifications in order to see lasting improvement.
Yeah, I think that's so true. There's no one size fits all approach,
No.
even to setting a tinnitus sound generator, because we've seen it so many times, right, Madison, where people will come in and say, well, they turned this function on in my devices, but the sound they turned on is worse than my tinnitus. And so now I can't even wear the things. And it's like, that's because you can't just turn it on and expect that it's going to work. It has to be very individualized, because what's soothing to me might not be soothing to you. And if it's not soothing, it's not going to work. But I think there's just not enough training and knowledge out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of people have been told, oh yeah, we treat tinnitus, and then they just put amplification on the patient, which sometimes might really help, but then you have to factor in so many other potential issues, right? Like sound sensitivity, hypersensitivity to sound. If you don't have all of the different programming parameters set correctly for someone, they might have the opposite effect, where they say that's making my tinnitus worse. And we know if we got that response, we have to go back to the drawing board, do over, and figure out where the sound levels are uncomfortable. But I just meet too many people where, they'll say, oh, I tried that and it didn't work for me. And it's like, well, but did you? Because it doesn't sound like you were given like you're saying, the educational counseling pieces. There's a lot of strategies here that we need to incorporate. Is the sound therapy set correctly for you? Did we look at uncomfortable levels of sound? Has that been factored in? Because some tinnitus can be reactive when it feels provoked by other unpleasant sounds in the environment. So it's just very complex. So I like what you said about how it needs to be so individualized to each person.
What if you went to the gym and you were doing an exercise, but because of the way you were holding your body or your alignment, it was actually having like a negative effect on your joints, right? You're doing the thing, you're going to the gym, you're getting exercise, you're moving your body, but you might actually be having some consequences from that. And so that's also where we come in, right? You can go look at all the things online, but you're going to find something to support every hypothesis you could have.
Yes.
You could find anything online. And so I think that's also the value of us, is we are cutting the crap. We're cutting out all of the things so you don't have to go and dig through it all. That's our job. We are experts in this arena. We know what works and what doesn't, and we really tailor it to the individual. and it just
Yeah.
makes life easy. People are busy. People are
Yeah.
stressed. How can we make
Mhm.
this simple for you and give you the tools and guidelines so you don't have to do the heavy lifting there? You just have to carry it out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and we love to use physical therapy analogies
We
and
do.
exercise analogies because I think people could relate to it. And it's so true because if you have bad form in the gym, you're probably going to hurt yourself. The same can apply here if you don't have the right form
Mhm.
because you didn't work with a professional that really understood the basic neurophysiologic model of tinnitus and was not able to explain it to you either, right? So half of this is
Mhm.
education because
Mhm.
knowledge is power, right? And understanding what's going on is half the battle. So you're not wondering, why. We want to give you the why so you can stop searching for that information because that is not healthy. That does not help anyone when they just keep going back to Dr. Google, right? And trying to
Mhm.
find their answers by themselves online. You're so right. That can be very frustrating, time consuming, not helpful, actually, the opposite of helpful. So we just hope people can find the information they need and come to us at any of our locations and really sit down and experience the difference that we can make by focusing in this area if someone is indeed really fighting with bothersome tinnitus. That's the name of the game for us, right? We know exactly how to partner with people to
Mhm.
to combat their distress or their bothersome tinnitus and achieve that long lasting tinnitus remission. That's always my goal, and I know we just have to have patience and perseverance, just like you said, have a positive growth mindset.
And it's
We can
pretty
get
cool
there.
to get there, right?
Yeah,
It is
it is.
cool to witness yourself going on the journey, and that's a mindset shift you can adopt. Is like when you don't fix it overnight, but you take those steps, every step is like, "Oh my goodness, I feel so much better." And then just to
Yeah.
keep growing and evolving in that arena, and that's what we're there to do. It's not just slap this on. Um, it's like, how can we get you to your max potential, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And like you said, it is kind of cool when you can see people over time, and not everyone will experience this, but when you can see people over time saying, "Hey, you know what? We could turn my sound therapy down today because
Mhm.
I actually am in my app or with my volume control or whatever it is. I'm actually turning it down more often than not." It's like, that's a great sign. It's a sign of neuroplasticity. Things are changing. Things are moldable. Your brain's responding. And so we're able to do that. And some people, you know, like myself, probably started at such a low level with the sound therapy in the first place. If I turn it down any, it's going to be off. But still, it's nice to see some of those milestones for patients, or also when they come back and say, I thought my tinnitus was causing my hearing loss, but now that my tinnitus has subsided, I'm realizing I need help with the clarity piece too, and the devices are helping me with clarity with my wife's voice or my daughter's voice or whoever it is that they were struggling with before. And so it's always nice to see those benefits too, and when people realize, oh, okay, my tinnitus is better, but I still need a little help with clarity for hearing speech optimally, and that's always nice when people come to that aha moment as well. So
I have a
most people do, at
question for
least.
you.
Yeah.
How, because I'm kind of in this place where tinnitus is classified as neutral for me, but I'll still hear it. And I'm like, oh, cool. It's fine. And I usually redirect my attention really quickly because it's not bothersome to me and it's not causing a reaction. But how how do you help your patients or for yourself get to that point where it's no longer bothersome to I don't really think about tinnitus anymore?
Hmm.
I don't identify I don't identify with that as being something harmful to me, or I don't know. How do you get to that
Yeah, I think.
long-term remission?
Yeah, I think that really happens first at the lower brain level. So I think it just happens naturally,
Mhm.
organically over time as that hyperactivity in the brain decreases, as the reactions stop in the brain. And then it's almost like you realize, I haven't thought about that all day. And I haven't
Yeah,
thought about my tinnitus all day.
and then it
And
moves to,
so
like,
it
I haven't thought about it for 2
happens.
days? Like,
Yeah.
you at that
Yeah.
point? I haven't thought about it for
Yeah.
3 days?
Yeah. Yeah. And then it just continues to grow from there until if the intensity does increase, then you're like,
Oh,
there it is
no.
again. But I'm not going to panic. I know what to do.
Mhm.
I'm going to, go grab my sound generators, and I'm probably going to go take a walk, because for me, exercise definitely is also a helpful element that I know I can use when I have a tinnitus spike. But I think it does. I think it happens very slowly, gradually over time, to the point where people are just like, hey, yeah, I haven't been thinking about it. It hasn't been bothering me. I feel like I'm sleeping well. I've got my routine down. I know what to do. I'm wearing my sound therapy all day. I wear it from the time I get up till the time I go to bed at night, kind of scenario. And my sound generator at night. You get in a routine, and right, our brains like that pattern of routine. And so once we calm, I think, that lower brain level down, then we start rewiring at the higher brain level. That the conscious loop of the brain then starts to rewire as well. And then that's, I think, where we finally get to that point where we can say, yeah, I'm in long-lasting remission because I haven't thought about it for weeks. And we think that's fantastic. That's the goal. Not everyone might get there, but if you can even get to the point where you're saying, my tinnitus isn't bothersome anymore, I have no side effects, no symptoms, then we think fantastic. If you're only aware of your tinnitus maybe 10% of the time, 10 to 20% of the time, like I am, I don't even really talk about having tinnitus until I'm in discussion with someone about it. It doesn't even come up in conversation unless they bring it up and say, oh, you're the person who talks about tinnitus on TV. And I'll say, yes, I am.
Well, and I'll kind of even feel grateful for my tinnitus sometimes. First of all, because it's benign. That's
right.
Cool.
Yeah.
It isn't actually harming me. That's cool. And also, it's like a stress radar. When I start noticing it, it's this perfect cue to myself that I need to do something that helps calm me down and relaxes me. Because
Absolutely.
my body needs that right now. My brain needs that right now. My emotional well-being needs that right now. And it's such a great little radar for me to do that. So there's even some things you can find that are positive about tinnitus. That might seem crazy to some of you, but
no, it is. It's no, we say pay attention to, we don't want people to pay attention to the tinnitus, but we want people to pay attention to the possibility that something is changing in their body, in their system, in their auditory system, with the presence of constant tinnitus, right? So it's an interesting predicament, because we don't want to focus on it, but it is a sign that maybe something's changing and you should get it checked out, right? So I think that's a great place to end. If any of our listeners are experiencing tinnitus and have never been in a soundproof booth to have a full tinnitus evaluation and hearing exam, now's the time. Go get a baseline. See if everything checks out okay. Find out what that baseline looks like, so you have something to compare to over time. And if your tinnitus is bothering you, if it is impacting your sleep, your focus, your concentration, your ability to enjoy peace and quiet, talk to somebody who knows about tinnitus and tinnitus retraining therapy. Give us a call, comment on our videos, leave your questions after our podcast in the comments, and we'll try to get to all those comments and questions, because knowledge, we know, is power. So we want to be the one who can give you accurate information so that you can take control over your symptoms, over your life. So thank you so much, Dr. Madison Brown, for being with us today. I know we will have you on the podcast again soon to talk about more topics as they come up, but enjoy the lovely Arizona weather right now, and
thanks for having me.
Can't wait to see you in a couple weeks. I'll be out there to visit.
Thank you.
Me too. All right. Thanks, Madison. We'll talk to you again soon.